Hello, hello. So I'm Jeff. It's the Blind Valet dev support stream. So we're I've been starting these streams for the last few weeks. Once a week. I'm doing a few more this week. Hello, Ajonka. Welcome to the stream. So the idea is we're gonna be online. On average once a week, and I'm going to do development work on Blind Valet. If there's any questions from users of the application, Blind Valet is a tournament management application for poker tournaments. And if there's any users that have questions, feature requests, bug reports, or anything like that, we can deal with those as they come. And otherwise, I'm going to keep going down my long and expanding to-do list that I have with a list of features we want to add and so forth. Yesterday and the day before, live poker. Yes, it's not online poker. It's for managing live in real life poker tournaments. So when you're playing with chips and cards and friends around the table. So that's the idea. So we're today we're gonna work on some features of the application. The last couple of days we've been working on a overlay for the stream. So occasionally up in the upper right hand corner of the screen, you're gonna see some pop-ups. Most of them related to the Blind Valet application. Real tournaments that are happening live around the world. When there's updates, you'll see them. The pop-ups show up when new players are registered for a tournament, when a new tournament is created, when blinds increase, and so forth. These are anonymous messages; they just show the city and country they're coming from. But it's kind of fun to see what's happening live on the application as we go. So today, the plan is to work on a new feature, kind of tweaking an existing feature. We can manage different kinds of poker tournaments with Blind Valet. So there's your standard freeze out tournament, which means everybody buys into the tournament. Then when let me fit this to the screen a little bit better. Everybody buys into the tournament, and then when you get eliminated, you're done. And then the top finishers are going to get payouts and prizes. Then there's rebuy tournaments. Rebuy tournaments mean typically at any point during a certain period at the start of the tournament, often first 4 levels or something like that, you'll have the option of rebuying if you're anywhere at your starting stack or below. So you lose half your chips. You say, I don't want to play with a small stack. You're going to pay a rebuy price and get more chips, and you can keep playing. If you're above your starting stack, you can't rebuy. Usually at the end of that period, there's add-ons where you can add on additional chips regardless of your stack. And then there's re-entry tournaments, which are a little bit different. In order to do a re-entry, you have to be completely eliminated, so down to 0. You lose all your chips, you get knocked out of the tournament. It's a real elimination. It's counted as an elimination, a knockout. And then you decide, well, I'm going to register again. Typically, these are the type of tournaments that also have late registration as possible, so you can register during that re-entry period. And we had actually on my list of things to do was to actually let me create a new tournament, and we'll call this re-entry. And we'll make this a re-entry tournament. We're in French right now in the interface, so I'll change that. Maybe we'll take out the annies. So let me put this in English. Blind Valet is available in 48 different languages. This is a little thing I just added yesterday, is a little ad to show that I'm live on the stream right now. So just a little announcement. It's integrated directly to the Twitch API. So as soon as I go online, it automatically changes the ad on the clock. So if we go to the blind structure page, this is where you calculate the blind structure. You determine what type of tournament, kind of the rules and parameters of your tournament. So a re-entry tournament, let's look at the rebuy. For a rebuy tournament, you have the expected number of rebuys and the rebuy chips that come in. On the payout screen, you also have the cost of a rebuy and the cost of an add-on. So that's because sometimes rebuys will be cheaper than the original buy-in. Sometimes they'll be more expensive. There's a lot of different rules for rebuys from tournament to tournament. And the number of chips you get can also change. So these parameters help determine what the blind structure is going to be. So if we expect there to be 9 rebuys, then that's going to add 18,000 chips in play in this particular tournament, which will determine how many total chips are in the tournament and help determine what the final level of the tournament is going to be. And that's the goal is to make the tournament finish around the desired duration. So here it's set for 8 hours. And so if you change the amount of time, it's going to change the structure, either the level times or delete certain levels and so forth. So that works fine for the rebuy. For the re-entry tournament, we still have, we don't have some parameters are missing. There's no variation about the number of chips you'll have for a re-entry, because in a re-entry tournament, typically, it's looked at just as another entry to the tournament. So you get the same amount of chips, it's the same cost. However, we've had many users contact us and say, we run re-entry tournaments, but when you re-enter, you get a little bit more chips because typically the blinds are going to be higher when you rebuy or re-enter. And they would have a different cost for re-entries. So typically for re-entries, you use the same buy-in. It's the same cost as before. But some clubs have different rules and they want a different buy-in for re-entries, a different cost, and a different amount of chips. So that was on my list, my long to-do list of things we're going to add. And I just had a user today ask me for that exact feature. So I just responded to them saying, I'm going on stream now, and I'm going to build that feature. So that's the idea, is to add in for a re-entry tournament, re-entry cost, which will, of course, default to the buy-in, and then also re-entry chips. Re-entry chips like add-on chips, but but you'll be able to adjust that as needed. So, in all of these features, when it's on the calculator, it's an automatic calculation mode. So basically, it's a recommended value that you can just use as a default. If you go to manual mode, then you can change it to whatever you want. You can say, okay, the starting stack is going to be 2,500. And everything else calculates based on those. So if I click back here, it's going to recalculate based on the existing parameters. And each one of those has their own logic for calculations. So that's the idea. We're going to add in 2 different fields, the expected or the re-entry chips, which will default to the same as the starting stack, and the re-entry cost, which will default to the same as the buy-in. But then we're going to, obviously for those types of tournaments, we're going to have it triggered off of the correct field. So let's get started. So I'm going to switch to my development branch, and let's make a new branch for this feature. re-entry fields, I guess we can call it. Okay, so we're going to have to add one field to the payouts tab, one field to the blind structure tab, and I'm going to also want these to, as we said, default to the to those previous values, and then all the calculations that we'll need to take those into account as well. So let's get started by adding in the fields. So this is an application built in Angular, which is the front-end framework. We use Firebase real-time database for the data storage, which is a NoSQL data store. And we use Cloud Functions on the server for server-side functionality. So it's a full it's serverless, and it's a the application itself is just a static JavaScript, HTML, CSS application, the front end, and then, as I said, Cloud Functions and a real-time database in the back end. So I don't have to manage any hardware, determine sizing of my servers and so forth. Everything's fully scalable as much as needed. Right now we have about on a weekly basis, we're turning at about 700 tournaments a week running the platform, and about 10,000 participants in Blind Valet tournaments. So this is not necessarily 10,000 users of the application, because every player in a poker tournament is not going to be using the application, although they can. You can join as a user for free, join your club, and be able to follow along the clock on your phone and so forth. So let's look at, let's try and find out where we need to change this data. So I'm just going to look at my structure. It's a pretty big application. This code base started in 2015. So it's nearly 10 years old, and we've been upgrading Angular versions since AngularJS, since the original version. Angular 1 to Angular 2 was a very big increase. AngularJS to Angular 2 was a major change. And then it's been pretty much incremental changes since then. I'm still on an old version of Angular 11, but I have some dependency issues that I'm trying to work through, but it's a big 10 years. It's been a long time. This 10 years for this code base, but before that there was a version that I built with Adobe Flex. I don't know if anyone out there remembers Adobe Flex, but I did a version with Adobe Flex that basically produces a Flash application, which had the blind structure calculator, had a clock as well, had a payouts tab. Didn't manage any of the seeding, didn't have any league functionality, but it was pretty good for the time. That I built in 2010 when I was on a sabbatical, or 2011. And before that, it was a HTML PHP version, which is around 2007, maybe 2008. I don't even remember the actual first version, but it was a HTML and PHP version that just did blind structure calculator. So that was my original version. So let's look at this. So this tournament param is what is a reusable component that we use for all of our fields on the tournament. And so we'll be using that for both of these that we're going to add. So one of them, let's see, blinds and blinds param. This is the component where we're going to need to add the new parameter for the reentry cost. So there should be expected reentries. So here's one. So this is the field. We'll duplicate this field and modify it to our needs. So this is be if hidden if it's not a reentry tournament. So that's good. Number, that's good. It's going to be a number type. The data it's called reentries. The expected reentries is reentries, but we want to call it reentry chips. So this is going to be the new field that we're going to add, the new data parameter. Expected, no, we want to call this reentry chips. Reentry chips. Now this is what we're doing here is we're adding in a new text label identification that is going to be translated. So as I said, we're in 48 different languages. So every time we add any piece of text to the application, it needs to be translated into 47 other languages. We provide the English version, and then ChatGPT, some scripting, some program back office application will make that translation. So as rebuy chips, we're going to add reentry chips. Minimum 0, that's the same. BV Pram reentry chips. So actually this should be camel case as well. Reentry chips. Okay, reentry chips, and then so this is a toggle to see if we're doing it. This is the toggle value to see if we're in manual mode or auto calculate mode. And so we're going to call this reentry chips manual. That double E gets me every time. Reentry chips manual. And the manual parameter. Okay, that's just the string. Okay. I'm not sure why I need all of those. We should probably be able to do it once and have the other ones automatically generated, but I'm just going to follow convention, and I'm not going to refactor the whole tournament parameter structure at the moment, but it seems redundant to do a couple of these things twice, but that's what you get working with the legacy code base. So so that field should be good. Okay, so we just did a refactoring. I don't know, my prettier just restructured my code a bit here. So let's see if my local server is running. I think it is. So this is my dev server. I have a dev server. I run my dev server locally against a development instance of Firebase, and then I have the production server, of course, with a separate Firebase instance. So I can try anything I want here, and I'm not going to mess up the production platform. Let's call this Wednesday reentries. make this a re-entry tournament. That's another thing we need to do is add in to our wizard here, our tournament creation wizard. So let me just take a note of that. Add to wizard. Because when you create the tournament, there's a certain set of the parameters that you select at the tournament creation. Or maybe I won't. I'll leave it as an option since the majority of time it's going to be the same as the starting stack. So here's our new field. The label is not showing, and that's because we don't have the ID in the translation database yet. So what I could do is just I'm just thinking I need to run my dev server for my back office application. So I have to open another terminal and run that. So I have a whole back office application that I use for managing Blind Valet it has a lot of features for helping me do support, statistics, accounting for different items and so forth. And one of the things it does is manages the translations. So let's go to that. And I think I'm using Node version 14 for this code base. And then we're going to do npm run start. Now this I'm going to have to wait and see which port it's going to use, because it's also an Angular application, so the default port 4200 is in use. So I have several web servers running right now. This is my dev server for my overlay. This is my dev server for Blind Valet itself. And this is my dev server for my back office app. So it's on port 64942. So let's open this one up. And again, if anyone feel free to interrupt me with questions, if you're coming over from Blind Valet or if you're just on Twitch and interested in something I'm working on or have any questions about what I'm doing, feel free. So this is my BV admin, my back office application that I use to manage a lot of these things. I just added in the last couple of weeks this as well, which is my the announcement text that you can actually see here that I added with an integration to Twitch, so it's set every time I go live automatically. And also I can use this little feature to set a date and time of my next stream, and then I'll automatically set the text on the server and to go live when I'm planning a new stream. So it'll say, okay, my next stream is next Monday at 3 p.m. or whatever. And then this is the translation, adding a translation phrase option. So let's make sure we get it right. We just added this reentry chips, and the label is reentry chips. Now we need to give it a context of where this text string happens in the application. Now this is important for translations because sometimes the same word that I use in English may have different versions of that word depending on where it's used. If it's used in a button, which is going to be more of a verb, more of an action. If it's going to be used as a label somewhere, it could change the word in other languages. So this would be a field label on the blind structure tab, indicating the number of chips given for a tournament reentry. And so then the base English text, this is what will show up in the English version. This one is just automatically stored in the translations database. And then this and the context are then sent to ChatGPT 47 times to translate into the different languages. So the English text for this will just be simply reentry chips. And that looks good. Click on add phrase. So here we have a pop-up, a player registered at a tournament in the Russian Federation. It's so cool. So this is done. So we can check our translations in the database and make sure this has gone through. Let's see, where are we? Real-time database. Firebase has two different databases. There's the real-time database, which was the original. Why is this not working? Something is... I have some pages becoming unresponsive. That's strange. Hope I'm still online. Don't have internet crashing, but... Hello, hello. Okay, let's restart this Chrome window. Not sure what just happened there. Okay, so let's look at translations. Let's look at the French version, since I live in France, and reentry trips. And I misspelled it again. I don't know why I want to say rentry instead of reentry. I guess when there's no dash, it messes me up. Jeton de réentrée. It's not great. It should be réinscription. That's something I need to do. Something I need to do is for each of the languages to create a vocabulary list, basically. The key phrases, jeton de réinscription. I need to have basically a vocabulary list of key phrases in the application. Things like small blind, big blind, reentry, ante, kind of the critical terms that can be used at multiple places in the application to make sure that when I'm translating these, that they're not re-entry in one place and reinscription in another place, that it's consistent across the application. So that's something I need to take a look at down the road, as well as vocabulary list, which then I would pass to ChatGPT along with the context and the phrase. I would also pass the existing vocabulary list so that they can follow suit. Okay. So that's good. And then, so the translations did go through. So we should have those for all the different languages. So if we look at German, if we have any German viewers, they can tell us if this is correct. But it just came through as reentry chips. So some terms, and that's another thing, is that in some languages, poker terms are not necessarily translated. So in French, big blind, they translate 1 out of 2 words. So it's gros blind, they say in French. So ChatGPT is usually pretty good about keeping it in the context for the language. So I don't know if this is correct or not, but at least we know we have the entries. So we did get a return from ChatGPT, and it gave us a translations, and we stored it in the database. So That's done. So now if we go back to our dev server and open up our Wednesday reentries and go into the blind structure, now we do have the phrase reentry chips set. We don't have the value set. We don't have this the manual option set or to auto mode or manual mode, because we haven't set those in the prerequisites, but the field is there. So let's look at probably a good model would be the add-on chips, because that one's set. It's a similar field that's going to have the same types of parameters. So let's look at that field. Find everywhere in the application that appears, and then we can go about making the necessary changes. So this is on the home component, which is a little mini version of the blind structure calculator just on the home page. We don't need to do anything with that. Here on the create tournament component, this is the little wizard we talked about, where I don't think I'm going to add in that field there. But we may need to make some changes in the component code. We certainly should. So for example, by default, we'll put this into manual mode, of course. Into, excuse me, not in manual mode, in automatic mode. So we'll make re-entry chips manual is false. Now this is calculating the chips. We shouldn't need this. This is again in my create tournament component. Now in the tournament service, this is bringing in default values. Let's see, what is this a part of? Tournament service, this is the create tournament. And it's when it's being loaded from a template, or when it's been being loaded from a template. Let's see. So we'll add the same one in here. Should be good. What next? What next? This is again in the create tournaments area. So it's saying if there's atom chips and starting stack, add-on chips ratio, I don't know, that has nothing to do with this. Add-on ratio and rebuy ratio, these are for calculating, these are some defaults used for calculating the number of reentries, number of rebuys and add-ons and so forth in our auto calculate mode. We don't need those. Because by default, it's just going to be the starting stack. Now this is doing some settings for the buy-in. So this we will need to update for the reentry cost. Maybe we should just do that now so that we're doing all the changes at once. Should we add the other field in and then do all the changes at once? Maybe not, because we're going to be searching for different things. So let's leave that B for now. Where else are we seeing the add-on chips? There, that's fine. It's the same line. Add-on chips ratio, we don't need that. Let's see, calculating the total chips in play. This is going to be important. So this function calculates the total chips in play based on the number of players, the type of tournament it is. And so you can see here, we're calculating this based on, if it's a re-entry tournament, it's using the starting stack for the number of re-entries. So here, this is a new parameter, so every tournament's going to have a starting stack, but not every tournament, especially previous ones, are going to have a re-entry chips. So within this, I'm going to say if there is a value in re-entry chips, then we'll set, we'll use the re-entry chips, and if there isn't, then we'll use the starting stack for this calculation. So re-entry chips, oops. And somewhere else, I think I've already done. I have re-entry chips. This is good. I'm going to do this 10 times during the stream, but that's how it is. Else. Okay, so if, yeah, that's why, because I used it there. Re-entry chips, if that parameter exists, then we use re-entry chips. Otherwise, we'll use the starting stack. That seems pretty good. Let me just search for re-entry to make sure I haven't done that elsewhere. No, I have not. Okay. Okay, so total chips in play, that one's good. Calculating the add-on chips. Total chips in play, that's what we just changed. Let's see, what is this function? This is update stacks. So this is updating the displayed player chip stacks based on the rebuys and so forth. If they haven't, if they've rebought and so forth. I don't think we need to do anything here. No, it should be fine. And on chips ratio, we don't need. And the blinds parameter components. Yeah, we just did that. So that should be it. Yeah, so basically it's just using this value to calculate the total chips in play. That's the real time it's needed. So what else do we need to do? We need to set the initial value. So if we go back to the tournament service and the create tournament process, let's go through this and make sure that we have everything we need. Okay. So this is looking at when people are using templates. Sometimes what's happened is when you can save a blind structure as a template that you can reuse later. Sometimes we've added parameters since that template was saved. You know, over the process of 9-10 years, adding features, sometimes those parameters don't exist. So it looks like these are taking care of some of those cases. Let's see. So there's basically just setting some defaults for different items. Setting the player limit. Building the initial structure for the object. The live data is what actually happens when you're actually running a tournament. Those values are updated. And these are updating basically your default values. So based on, so if you're setting your always setting your rebuy chips to double your starting stack, we're going to remember that ratio. So next time you create a tournament, we'll calculate it in the same way. So that's how that works. So what we need to do is set the initial parameter that may not be set there. Because when it creates the tournaments, it's going to be setting the parameters. So and whether it's a template or not, we're going to want to set, and even if it's a re-entry tournament or not, we can set the re-entry chips to be equal to the starting stack, basically just as the default. So if not params dot re-entry chips, if not params re-entry chips, and params dot starting stack, params dot re-entry chips equals starting stack. So that's our initial value. So let's see. Let's create a new re-entry tournament. Call it number 2. And look at our blind structure. Re-entry chips 5,000, same as our starting stack. So that looks good. So we have our default value. My question is, what if we look at an older tournament? That's going to be a problem here, is if we have an existing tournament that doesn't have re-entry chips set, that doesn't have the re-entry chips manual, then you're going to have this kind of broken field. So we want to also set it so that if they just open up an existing tournament, that it's fixed as well. So that's going to be in the tournament service, where we are. And there's an init tournament when you load a new tournament. I believe it's what it was called. What is it called? Init. So here it's bringing in all the data from Firebase for this tournament. I'm just trying to find where we should make this change. So basically what's happening is we're loading a new tournament. We're going to detect that there's some issues with the data, and we're going to fix those and make the update. So here's an example of where we're doing that. So we're using this function, which is a change parameter. And what this is doing is it's making multiple changes. We're making multiple changes to the parameters without sending it to the database, so that when this whole process is finished, it's going to send them all at once. So it's basically just updating a single major update that is going to be done. So it's somewhere in this loop that we're going to do this. Check for ghosts. Very ominous. This was a attempted catch for a bug, intermittent bug that we had, where we had some ghost players that were still showing up in the player object but weren't actually registered for the tournament. So I called those ghosts, and we had a check for ghosts. Not quite as spooky as it sounds. So if this here's one related to reentries, but I really just want to set the default for any of these, as long as the default doesn't exist. So I'm not going to put it only for reentry tournaments, because the reentry chips is kind of a default value. So if they switch the tournament from freeze out to reentry, we want to have those defaults set. And so let's just add it in here. If, let's see, results, params, if not, results params dot re-entry chips and starting stack, then we're going to say, here we go. Thank you, GitHub Copilot. This change param reentry chips to the starting stack value. We also want to can assume that if there's no reentry chip set, then there's also missing param for the reentry chips manual, which of course, thank you very much. The GitHub Copilot knew what I wanted, knew what I was thinking, so that is set. So that should be good. So let's check now and see if when we load up this tournament we created before, if the value is now showing. And it is, so that's good. So even for older tournaments, so let's see, if we pick an old tournament. This is a rebuy tournament. Let's switch it to reentry, and we should see that reentry chips is there and populated. Okay. And now let's do a little test to see if it's actually working. I believe, right. So let's register some players. So here we have 4 players, each with a starting stack of 5,000. So there's 20,000 total chips in play, right? And so on the clock, you can see the average stack with 4 players should be 5,000. That makes sense. So what happens if we change the reentry chips here? We go to manual, Manual is not working. Well, that's interesting. What am I missing? There's some issue with that. Let's see. Let's go back to our blind parameters component for reentries. Reentry chips. So if hidden, if it's not a reentry tournament number, reentry chips manual, and here's the bug. The BV man param was not right. So again, I shouldn't have to be entering this twice. I should be able to do this once, and for each of these fields. I don't know why I have to do it twice, but okay. So that was probably the bug. Back to the blind structure, and okay, now we're editing. So let's set this to 8,000. We can actually see this updating in the database. So if we go to development, go to tournaments, our tournament ID and params, we should see all these parameters, including reentry chips, which has now been updated to 8,000. So we know our field editing is actually doing the database update as well. So if I go back to auto calculates, well, that's something we need to fix. The auto calculate is not, I don't have a function to recalculate the reentry chips, so that needs to be done as well. Okay, recalc. Okay, but let's look at this. 8,000 for reentry chips. So we have 4 players. Average stack is 5,000. That makes sense, right? So now what happens if we go to players and we eliminate one of these players? Let's say Antoine is eliminated in 4th place. We go back to the clock. Average stack is 6666. So that makes sense because it's 20,000 divided by 3, which comes out to about that. And now we want to register a new player. So let's say we register Antoine again. So this is a re-entry. You can see player registered Antoine 2 for his second bullet. First of all, his stack is not showing correctly because that should be 8,000 now. So that's one issue. Set stack. Now, we should be seeing there's 5,000 chips in play, for 20,000 chips in play for our 4 initial players. There should be 28,000 chips in play, divided by 4 players remaining. So the average stack should be 7,000. And it's 25,000. So our calculation is not working. So I think there's the update stacks maybe that needs to be fixed. Update stacks function. Update stacks. Okay, so so this is going through each of the players. It's looking at their as long as they're a valid player. So here we're using the starting stack plus rebuys and add-ons. Now what we need to use here is starting stack if it's a regular tournament, re-entry stack if it's a re-entry tournament. So let's do a stack equal the starting stack, and then if actually let's do this constant stack equal we'll use a ternary, so this latest turn dot params dot tournament type and just make sure I don't have a typo in my tournament type for a re-entry tournament. Re-entry underscore tournament. Re-entry underscore tournament. So if it's re-entry, then we should use our re-entry chips, otherwise we use the starting stack. Re-entry chips, otherwise starting stack. And then so we'll make this here just stack. And that should be good. So here we're calculating how many chips they bought. So that's their buy-in. Initially they'll get a starting stack. Otherwise there's a manual mode where sometimes, for example, at our tournaments, usually at a break, we'll update the stacks to update the ranking. So you can go to players here and adjust manually, click on these and manually adjust them. Okay, so I messed up. Now everybody's 8,000, which is wrong because I didn't do the right condition. I said if it's because obviously their first buy-in should be the starting stack regardless. And so if it's a re-entry tournament, and now how do we determine that the player has rebought? I know there's a way. There's a, let's look at this tournament. I think it's, because here it has Antoine 2, and this one is going to reference the original player. So so for this tournament, let's look at the players list and look at the two Antoines and see the difference. So here's the Antoine who's his ID, and then here is Antoine 2, where there's a base ID value, base UID. So this is their user ID has the -2 added to it, and this is their base user ID. So we need to make sure that they have, if they have a base user ID, we know it's a re-entry if that field is populated. So if it's re-entry tournament and this player, so this latest players, no, we have the player object here. So if that and player.base UID, so if that exists, then we use the re-entry chips. Otherwise, we use the starting stack. Now let's see how that works. Players. So there, that looks better. So Antoine has 8,000 and the others have 5,000. So now, as I said, we should have 28,000 chips in play total. Antoine's 5,000 that he lost. These don't add up because these haven't been updated. We don't know who actually won his chips, but we could update those as necessary. So it should be 8,000 plus 20,000 is 28 divided by 4 should be 7,000. And our average stack is still wrong, so that's okay. We'll figure that out. So it's doing 25,000 divided by 5 to get this average stack. So let's see how this calculation is done. It should have been based on the total chips in play. Calc total chips. Let's look at this function. Not here. Why is this in the... Here's a calc total chips function, but I'm not sure why it's in the... This is in the home component, so this one shouldn't really matter. But it does have a calculation, so let's fix it anyways. If it's a re-entry tournament, then we add in the number of re-entries times the starting stack. No, so we want to make this re-entry chips. Right, so these are plus equals. So if it's basically calculating the total chips, number of players times their buy-in or times their starting stack. And then if it's a rebuy or re-entry, we add in some extra values based on the number of rebuys, number of re-entries, and the chips associated. So those are just the extra add-ons. So that should be okay. Now in my tournament service, we have a function to find the total chips in play. This looks like where it might be set actual total chips. So let's see. Because there's so basically there can be a discrepancy if for example people go through and manually set the number of chips that everybody has. If you add up all those chips, that's not necessarily going to be the actual total chips in play, because error is human. Sometimes they're not up to date. Some people may update their stacks and others aren't updated. So the actual total chips should be based on the number of buy-ins, the number of re-entries, the number of rebuys and add-ons and so forth. So let's go to this function, total chips. We need to find that. So let's see, that's this function here. So let's look at this one. So, okay, so the total chips is number of players times the starting stack, and then we're going to add in for freeze out, rebuy, and re-entries. And here, we're going to add in the number of reentries, and here we need to put in reentry chips instead of the starting stack. Again, if they just use the defaults, or if it was a previous tournament, this is going to get updated, this value base, which will be equal to the starting stack, and so it's not going to change for the majority of tournaments. But for those people that do want to customize it, then it'll show a different value. So that should be good. Let's see if now, when this updates, it changes. So far it doesn't. Average stack. Okay, let's keep finding out what's going on. The average stack. So there's an average stack component. Let's look at where that's getting its data from. So this is underneath the clock average stack component. Okay. So what's happening here? Let's see. We're getting the players count. Number of players remaining equals the players count minus the number of people that have been eliminated. So the total players in the tournament minus the eliminations. Makes sense. If there have been re-entries, then the number of players initially, we add in the number of re-entries, okay. And then we average based on the total chips, divide by the number remaining, so that looks okay. Here we're just doing some formatting of the text to put it in, 57K or 2 million or whatever if they're big numbers. So it is pulling from total chips. So what is that value at? So I assume that value for this tournament is only 25,000, which it is. Total chips is only 25,000. So that's the problem. Now, where is that getting updated? So let's search for live total chips to see where that's getting set. So here we're updating it to the actual total chips, which is getting calculated with our total chips calculation. So we're managing players. So basically, I guess it's getting set here. Let's just do a little console log here to make sure. Actual chips. See if that's where this value is coming from. Let's do a little inspect. Look at our console. Yeah, actual 25,000. So there's something wrong with this calculation. This total chips. So let's look at that function again and see why it's calculating poorly. Let's see, where is our total chips function? Oh, here it is. So, so we're coming down. If this is a re-entry tournament, should really be explicit. So if it's not equal to a freeze out, we do add-on chips. That's true, because you could have add-on chips in a re-entry or in a re-entry tournament or I'm really cutting off a lot of the screen. Let me put this over a bit. Okay. So add-on chips could be on a rebuy or a re-entry tournament, but not in a freeze out. If it's a rebuy tournament, we're adding in the rebuy chips. If it's a re-entry tournament and the re-entry chips value exists, then we're adding the number of re-entries times this. So are we getting the re-entries number passed in? Player rebuys. So maybe that's the problem. Let's look at all the parameters that come into this function to see if we're getting the right values coming in. Because it could be the calculation is being done right, but we're just getting the wrong inputs. And that looks like what's happening. Because we're having the number of players, we don't have the number of re-entries. So the problem is here is that the number of players is including the number of re-entries, I believe. So we have if we look at this again, we have this is the wrong tournament. So we've got Antoine is in twice, and then there's 3 others. So there was 4 players, 5 total, because there's 1 re-entry. Okay, so we want to calculate so here we want to do, this should be the number of players minus the number of re-entries times the starting stack, and then the number of re-entries times the re-entry chips, right? This is if re-entry chips is defined. Actually, now it should always be defined because we load it, we set it on initial load, so we don't really need this one. We've already set that. If it's unset, we've set it to the starting stack, so it should always be there. But the problem is we're not getting the number of re-entries passed in here, so that's the real problem. And it was calculating correctly before because the re-entry was showing up as a player, which was getting multiplied by the starting stack, so there was no issue. So it makes sense. It was just this code was never actually getting triggered because re-entries was always 0. So let's look at where we call that again. Right, so I think it was here, the set actual total chips. So if we're managing player registrations, we need to pass, and that's the thing. Here, you see it's hard-coded to 0. This is the number of re-entries. So this dot latest live dot re-entries should take us to our happy place. Re-entries 1, so that value is showing. Total chips 28,000. That's looking promising. It just got calculated in the background. starting stack, average stack 7,000. So so that looks much better. Okay, so then if we have FIFU gets eliminated, starting stack should now be 28,000, or the average stack should be 28,000 divided by 3 because there's 3 players left. 28,000 divided by 3, that looks right. And now if FIFU does a re-entry, we should get an additional 8,000. So now it should be 36,000 divided by 4. So let's then do an elimination, because that'll be easy for the calculation if Anthony gets eliminated. Now we have 36,000 divided by 3. It should be 12,000. 12,000. Okay, so now we're looking good. So our reentry chips is now working. We can change this to a different value. 600, no, 6,000. And it's going to update. So is that right? 10,666. So what is it going to be? We have 1, 2, 3, 4 people entered. That gives 20,000. These stacks didn't update, and that's because the tournament is already ongoing. It should have if it was set beforehand. So this is 6,000. What's being used as the calculation now is 6,000 for these two. So 12,000, 32,000 chips in play. 32,000 divided by 3. That looks right. 3 times that is going to be 2,000. So yeah. So we're looking good. So these are calculating properly. Now the next thing is the payouts. So let's do a little commit, because we have everything working right for our chips. So added reentry. Just going to do a little commit. Added reentry chips field to blind structure tab. Changed total chips calculation to include to use reentry chips instead of starting stack. Okay. Okay, it's making the same call, so we should be fine there. So, now what's next? So now we want to add in a similar change, but we want to add in, instead of having just a buy-in gets you your starting stack, we want to add in a reentry cost, which will give us our the cost for a reentry. So then the total prize pool is going to equal the number of players times the starting stack, number of reentries times the reentry cost, number of add-ons times the add-on cost. Should give us our total prize pool, and then adding in an added prize if the organizers want to add in an added prize to the prize pool. Maybe there's $50 added to the prize pool because they're generous. So let's look at, let's add that field in. We can go ahead and add in the translation phrase even before we create it, because that's another step we need to do. So I'm going to call this reentry cost. We're going to make this So this will be a field label. Let's do this on the payouts tab indicating the cost for a tournament reentry. And we'll call this reentry cost. We'll add this. So this again is going to go out and translate it into 47 new languages. Translations, FR, and reentry cost. That completed, so it should be there. Reentry cost is not showing up. Translations French, reentry cost. Reentry cost is what I called it. Something happened. May have had a problem with our function. So let's look at, this is, I believe it's translation job is the function. Let's look at the logs for that. What happened? Sometimes you get, you'll get a fail from an error from ChatGPT that I'm using to do my translations. So let's look at that. So you can see a lot of these translations coming through. It's possible it just hadn't finished yet for that one, because we're triggering a lot of translations at the same time. So it may just take a while to get through them all. I don't see errors happening. So they seem to be coming through pretty well. Let's see if it's updated yet. Could be just a timing issue. FR, reentry cost. No, this didn't come through for French. Let's look at those logs again. Oh, these are reentry chips showing up. I just see what I did. I did this on my production server. That'll do it. Okay. Now what port? I was on port 64. So that phrase is now in production, but it's not in development. That's why I didn't see it in my development database. So it makes sense at least. Let's bring this back up. I'm not sure why I opened the production one. Okay, so re-entry cost. Let's do the same thing. Field label and the payouts tab indicating the cost for a tournament re-entry. Re-entry costs, and add this in to the development server. Okay, so let's see if we're doing better now. Now this is coup de la réentrée. The réentrée, but we want réinscription. 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 It takes an accent. Just want to make sure, but Just correcting the French version. As I said, we need a translation library, vocabulary for each of the languages, which is a to-do on my long and growing list. Coup de la réinscription, okay. So now we haven't actually done anything in the code. All we've done is add in that translation ID. So, but we can use that now when we add in our field. So let's go to the payouts tab, and let's add that in. So this is under tournaments, payouts parameters, and should be somewhere in here. So let's look at add-on cost. So we've got the rebuy costs underneath this, which is very similar to the reentry costs. So let's copy that one. And basically we can just replace rebuy everywhere in this line by re-entry. Now this is there's one extension I use in VS Code that I just love. Oh, sorry, I missed your comment. Pain Hustle, any tips on how to improve at coding? I'm trying to become a web developer. Like a hobby, I'm trying to achieve my real dream, but coding looks fun. Yeah, I do. I mean, there's my first recommendation is to make a project. Think of something simple you want to do, a simple web page, a simple blog, anything small, and build it. The definitely recommendation is to use real projects to learn on. So you can also look at example projects that maybe have a similar framework that you want to use, open source projects and so forth. And one thing for me, an amazing learning tool is ChatGPT. Kind of people make fun of it and think it's think people are just using that to code for them in their place, and they don't understand what they're doing. But one very powerful thing you can do with ChatGPT is to use it to explain existing code. So let me see if I can see an example. Like let's see, like let's go to this total chips function that I was just looking at, and look at how we could use ChatGPT to understand what's happening with this function. So for example, oops, I'm in the wrong window. Let me find this function. I'm going to copy that into ChatGPT and say, this is a function from an Angular component please explain it line by line for me as a beginner web developer. And you can see what the results this gives. It's going to go through and it's going to say, okay, this is a TypeScript function, total chips, calculating the total number of chips in a poker tournament based on various parameters. And it's just going to walk you through and explain what each line does. And it's, for me, it's a real powerful way to, even as a senior developer and experienced developer, when I look at code that someone else has written, code in a different language that I'm not used to programming in, maybe new frameworks that I'm not used to working with, then I'll use this very often to explain code that I'm working with. So you can see it's breaking it down line by line and giving you an explanation of what the code does. And then, so that's one way, is to take an existing open source project, a simple project or simple code examples you find online, start using them yourself and modify them, change them, have the ChatGPT explain the code to you and so forth. So I'm not going to go through the whole function, but for me, it's an amazing resource. If you can afford it, the $20 a month for the latest model using ChatGPT 4 is worth it. It's a better, it's much better. It has more recent data and does a better job of explaining things and writing code. But definitely don't just copy and paste if you don't understand what it's doing. I do use ChatGPT to write code for me as well, but I make sure I understand every piece of code, every line of code that's going in. So I can look at it and say, okay, this makes sense. This is what I would have done. I might ask for changes. But if it writes the code and you don't understand it, just ask it to explain it. And it's a great way to learn. So you can use ChatGPT as a worker for you. When you understand what you want and you know what you're doing, you just don't want to go through the process of writing it line by line. And you can also use it as a mentor for you when you're learning something new. So I definitely say do it on a real project. Ideally something you really want or you really want to use. And to use ChatGPT to explain things to you and to help you understand the concepts. So yeah, it can be pretty powerful. Okay, well, you say thank you for the very helpful tip. I'm trying to learn how to make projects. Have a nice day, and I'll try your advice. Okay, well, good luck with that. And stop back in one of my future streams and let me know how it's going. That'd be cool. So where were we? Oh yeah, so we're adding in gonna add in our reentry cost to our payout parameters. So that's what we were working on. So reentry tournament. So what I was saying is that I have with VS Code you can modify multiple places at one time. So that's what I did to modify this rebuy text to reentry in each of these. And there's a little extension, I can't remember what it's called, but there's a little extension for I think it's multiple. It's something like multiple replace, but that's not what this one is. Replace. I'm not sure exactly which one it was, but it's a replace selection. No, because I have it installed, so I'm not sure which one it is. But it basically will just. I think it's maybe something about capitalization. No, I don't remember what it's called, but I'm using it, and it's a little extension that when you do multiple changes at the same time, it'll just maintain the case. So if it's capitalized in one place and lowercase in another place, it'll change both of them and keep the case sensitivity as it was before. So you can see it put a lowercase r here when I did reentry, and uppercase reentry here. These are all lowercase, these are all uppercase, but I changed it all at the same time. So I just love that little extension. Just makes my day. So I should find the real one so I can give them credit, but I don't know. Can't find it right off the bat. So reentry tournament, reentry costs. Okay, that looks good. Reentry cost. Okay. So now we're gonna have to do some initialization as we did with the rebuy chips. So let's look at our reentry chips places that we entered it and set the same ones here. So now let's see, I don't think we're doing, if we look at the payouts, these don't have an auto calculate or manual to them. They're just default values. So we don't need a manual field. Let's see what else. So here we wanted, this is our initialization. So we're going to do a similar thing. If, and you know what, let's just copy this and we'll modify it. So if not rebuy reentry cost and params buy-in, then we'll set the reentry cost to the buy-in. And we don't need a manual. Reentry cost buy-in, that looks good. So here it should update automatically. There we go, we got our reentry cost. Where else did we change this? This is in the create tournament, right? And so let's do the same thing here. If there's no reentry cost and there's a buy-in, set the reentry cost to the buy-in. That looks good. Okay, so this is just, this is all for a blind structure template, which will not include the costs, so we don't need that. This is the total chips in play, we don't need that. This is updating the stacks, don't need that. And this is the blinds parameters. That's not, we don't need to change that either, so that's okay. Now let's look at the rebuy cost, because we're going to be doing similar things as the rebuy cost. So this is where, here's the create tournament component. So calc costs, and these are the defaults. So let's set that to reentry cost is the buy-in. That should be good. And this again is under create tournament, so we can do the same thing here. Reentry cost. These are updating the defaults. So let's update those as well. Actually, maybe if we do this, it's going to do it for us, which looks like it will. Okay. I think this is just making it so that if it's cleared out, it's counted as 0. If it's the field is set to null, then it counts as 0. So we want to do a similar thing for the reentry cost. And it doesn't want to predict that for me, GitHub Copilot. So let's do it manually. Reentry cost. Okay, so that's good. What else? The prize pool. So this is important. Now we have to be careful not to be counting them twice. So here it's adding in number of rebuys times the rebuy cost, add-ons times the add-on cost. And we want to add in also the number of reentries times the reentry cost, but we don't want to count the reentries in the number of buy-ins, number of players. So I think we're going to have to adjust based on that, but let's add it in here. No, so we do have here the prize pool is adding in the number of reentries, okay, times the buy-in. So here we just need to make this the rebuy cost. Not rebuy, but reentry cost. So it was already using the number of reentries, so we should be good at that. I don't think it's going to be counted double. So there we should be good. Where else? Let's see. Get the player cost. So this is a function that's used by our league points calculation because there's a total cost for the player. Now, right now with leagues, only the main entry is counted. So we don't actually have to take that into account in this calculation because re-entries don't count towards league standings. You're eliminated from the tournament. Your re-entry is not going to count towards your place in that tournament. That's something that we're going to make optional, an option going forward, but right now that's the way it is. So let's see. Null okay. So let's put in the the re-entry cost as well. I'm not sure exactly what this is doing. It's saying it's okay if there's no value entered. But if there's no value entered, it gets set to 0. So I'm not sure what is going on there. But just for consistency, we'll enter that in as well. And we should be good with all the updates. I'm going to check just one thing is the re-entries. Re-entries, live.reentries. And search for where that's done to see if it's used in calculations anywhere. Total chips, that's fine. Let's see. This is where we did our calculation earlier, so that we've already taken into account. That should be okay. That's just calculating the number. That's just executing the reentry. And the update stack should be getting called anytime parameters are changed, so that's good. That's the reentry we're just looking at. This is the unregistration, which that'll recall our update stack, so this should all be fine. Init info cycle, that should not change anything. Yeah, I think we should be okay. So let's do some testing and see if our payouts are updated correctly. So here's the tournament. Let's look at it. Let's put the added prize back to 0 because that's going to make it simpler for calculations. So, and let's put the reentry cost to 15. 15. So first of all, the prize pool didn't change, which worries me as already because it should. So the number of players is 4. Number of reentries is 2. So no add-ons. So 4 players at 10 should be 40. 2 reentries at 15 should be 30. So our prize pool should be 70. And that's not updating. So what happens if I refresh? It's still 60. So there's a problem with our prize pool calculation. So let's look at that. I know it's prize pool is the formula. And so, okay, so this is where we set prize pool, manage registrations. Player counts, actual players. Oh yeah, so this is if we're managing the players, if we're doing player registering by name, this is if we're not registering each player by name. If it's not a freeze out, so here I never added this in. So if I just didn't, I wanted to check and make sure I wasn't counting it double, but I just never actually added this in. So, so here's a case where we're going to have to, because if we just add in, we're going to add in the number of live.reentries times, let's bring this down, times the reentry cost. Right now, I think it is going to be counted double, actually. I know this is where we do it. So, it should be adding it there. Should be the same value, but I don't know if it's ever getting here because it's not, doesn't seem to be getting calculated. So let's go to our payouts again. Let's inspect this and we'll set up a console log to see if we're getting to the code we want to get to. And we have some cleanup to do as well. We have a couple console logs that are still there. So if we're managing payouts, we go into this loop. Console log player count. Now I believe this is going to be giving us 6 here. Okay. Let's register a new player. Player count 7. Okay. I'm not sure why it's getting updated so many times, but player count is now 7. So we got there. This is coming from our calculation. And payouts is 70, which is wrong. Should be 80, because we're getting the reentries are putting 5 extra in each, so it should be 80 now. So that one is calculating wrong. So this we actually want to be player count minus minus the number of reentries, right? So that'll give us in this case, in this tournament, it'll give us 50. And then we want to do, so if it's not freeze out, we're inside this. If it's a reentry tournament, then add in the reentries. This should be working. Not even know if this code is getting reached. Reentry prize pool. Okay, let's see if that's getting reached and see why this is not getting added on. So it doesn't recalculate every time we load the screen. It's only recalculating when there's changes, which is fine. So let's do what we can do is maybe undo the last registration. So we're back to 6 players. So 4 players. So we're never actually reaching that code for some reason. So we're 4 players, 2 reentries. So why aren't we getting to that piece of code is the question. Why is this not working? So if the tournament type is reentry tournament, that looks right. I know, I'm in the wrong window again. Close that. Reentry tournament. I believe that's the right term. And that's where it's used everywhere. So that should be correct. Latest turn params, tournament type is equal to reentry tournament and so this is only when it's not managing registrations. Let's take out that condition. And now it should be right for this one. We need to check both of our functionalities for the chips and for the cost in the case where we're not managing player registrations, because there's sometimes a little bit difference. So I suspect that now it's going to be, when we do our calculations, it's going to work. So let's register a new player. That's going to take the players up to 5, reentries 2, so we should expect to get 80 for the prize pool. 5 times 10, 5 times 10, and 2 times 15 should give us 80. So let's try that. Players, register a player, put Dada back in. And go to the prize pool. And now we're at 80. So that's calculating correctly. Now, Okay, so that looks good. Now the question is this going to work correctly when we, let's just make sure this, if I register somebody that's been eliminated, so Anthony, then we should go to 95 in the prize pool. $95. Okay, so that's calculating correctly now. And the award is calculating correctly, the awards. So now we need to make a new tournament where we're not managing player registrations. So there's two main modes. One when you're managing the players. So here we're gonna register each player by name. And there's another one where you're just like, I want to do a quick tournament. I've got 6 players. We're going to have some reentries, but I don't want to manage what their names are and so forth. I just want to run it quickly. So in this case, we would have actual players. Let's put 6 in, like I said. We go to the payout screen. The prize pool is 60. That's right. Go to the parameters and set in a reentry cost of 15. No reentries, so it shouldn't change. That makes sense. Now if we go to the clock, and here we add a reentry, we've got a problem because it's somehow the way we're calculating the number of players is a bit different for the two of these. I'm not sure what's going on here, but in this case, so it looks like where I subtracted out the number of players, here, the number of reentries, that's already done in the player counts. In this actual players is taking that into account. So let's see if we always want to add in the reentry costs. So this is going to be let's see if so if we're managing registrations, then we want to subtract the number of entries. Otherwise, we subtract nothing, and that should do it. I don't know if that's the cleanest way to write it, but let's see. Payouts, we just need to change something, so let's go to the clock. Add another reentry, so there's 2 reentries. So we should be expecting 6 times 10 would be 60, plus 2 times 15 should be 30, so it should be 90, the prize pool. No, we got 50. So that's doing 4. What is that doing? Oh yeah, so this should be in parentheses here. No, this is just a ternary, so it's, did I do it backwards here? If we're managing registrations, And we want to subtract out the number of reentries. Otherwise, nothing times the buy-in. It seems correct, but let's just do an if in here to make it cleaner. So if we're managing registrations, then the prize pool, what did we say? We subtract the latest reentries. Times the buy-in. Else so this is the case what we're doing right now. And so here we just want to do player count times the buy-in without subtracting anything. And this should all be within here. Okay. That should be good. So let's do one extra reentry. So now there's 3 reentries, 6 players, so it should be 60 plus 45 should be 105. 105. There we go. Okay, that looks better. So 6 players, 60 plus 45 is 105. Okay. And then if we do add-on, something like that, it should show as well. Add-on is 10 here, so it should be 115. Okay, that looks good. If we change the number of players, actual players to 8. 8 players, that'd be 80 plus 45, 125 plus 10, 135. Okay, so looks good. Make sure we didn't break anything on our regular tournaments. So this is one where we're managing the players. Let's register one more player that hasn't been in yet, Sandy. Close this. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players. So that should be 60 plus 3 rebuys, which would be 45. So we should have 105 in the prize pool. 105. If we do another rebuy, it should be 120. So let's register. Let's see who has been eliminated that is not back in. Nobody. So let's eliminate Sandy and then have her rebuy. And if we do that, should be, what do we say, 120. Okay, so that looks good. So that's all calculating properly. We have the translations. What didn't we do? We didn't put the phrases, the first phrase for the rebuy chips, we didn't put into production. We didn't do those translations. Right now I have to do it once for each of them. I should do that only once and then copy from one platform to the other, but I haven't done that yet. So, so we need to add that in on the production server for rebuy chips. So let's see, translation, reentry chips, excuse me, reentry chips, field label on the blind structure tab indicating number of chips for a tournament re-entry. That sounds good. Re-entry chips. This is on production. Add that in. And I'm going to want to change the French version because I want it to be réinscription instead of réentrée. Translations. If anybody's ever sees the app in their language and sees some translations that are strange, let me know. You can use the support chat right here to send me a message. I get those on my phone. Don't always respond right away, but I try to respond within a couple days at the latest. But let me know, and we'll try and get that fixed. So let's look at re-entry chips. So then basically we just need to clean up. We did have some testing, some console logs in the testing that we added in. So let's look at what we've changed and make sure we clean up what needs to be cleaned up. So no, that's good. That's good. This we can clean out. And this we can clean out. Okay, otherwise that looks pretty good. Payouts, that's fine. That looks fine, so I think we're good. Jeton de réentrée, jeton de réinscription. Okay, I think we're good. So let's go back here, make sure that we didn't miss any logging. Actually, it's still there. Total chips, actual chips. It's fine where we did that. Actual chips. Let's get rid of this one. And total chips. Here we go. So let's get rid of this one. Oops, what did I just do? I think I just got rid of that. What the heck did I just do? Total chips, total chips. I didn't break what I just did I? Let's see. clicked on something in the search, and I lost my I lost the line. So I don't know if I just removed it or what, but I wanted to remove it, so hopefully I did. So if reentry, we're using the reentry chip, so yeah, that's the code is still good. Double checking the payouts. They're looking correct. Okay. So what do we need to do to push this to production? We need to, we don't have any cloud functions to deploy. We've already put the translation phrases in production. One of them we did prematurely, but we did it. And I think we just want to check that the reentry cost is correct. I might not have changed this one in production for French. Yeah, so que de la réinscription. And that should be good. So we've got the translation phrases in production, and now we just need to merge the code, and it should do a full deploy automatically on Netlify, where I host my app. So we need to commit this. So we added in the reentry cost field and updated the prize pool calculation. Okay, so let's go to our main development branch. We'll merge in the branch we just did. So that's our main development branch. Now we'll open master and merge and develop, and that'll trigger the production push. Merge and develop. And let's see. We can monitor the progress of the deploy on Netlify. So you can see that here's our latest commit we just did, and it's deploying automatically. So it's really nice. And once that's up, we can test it in production, and I can notify my user that who asked for it today that the feature is now there. So this is our dev server. We have to wait for the deployment. Netlify is a really nice hosting platform that I'm still actually on the free version. They have a pretty generous free version for apps, and you're limited by the number of deploys you can do per month. So for big teams working on a big code base, it's usually go to a paid version. You're limited on the amount of bandwidth and some other things, but everything, I'm a single developer right now on the application. We use quite a bit of storage on the database side, but we don't host it on Netlify. We're only hosting our static code, so we're not using much storage. And once you load the application, then you're not really doing a lot of loading from the server for static files. So we don't use a ton of bandwidth, and so we're able to stay on their free plan and still have the benefit of their full infrastructure. So haven't had any downtime in years, and very stable, very reliable platform. So I've been super happy with it. So this goes through the build. So basically, you can create a site on here, link it to your GitHub repository, tell it which branch it should deploy based off of changes to. So mine is set just for the master branch. So anytime I do a commit to the master branch, it's automatically going to trigger a new build and a deploy. So you can see it's doing, it does my Angular build for me. So it runs the whole build process on the server, does the npm run build and build for production, outputs those files and then swaps them out with the files in the production directory. And so that's complete. And so we should be up and running on the production platform. So let's create a new tournament on production. Reentries, sounds good. Manage players, okay. Manage payouts, buy-in of 10. Reentry tournament, looks good. So here we are. Let's register a couple of players. So go to our blind structure. Let's set the starting stack to 2000 to get a nice round number. Whoa. What the heck just happened there? What is going on with my starting stack? That was weird. I need to check that out. Okay. And we have our reentry chips. Let's set those to 3000. So starting stack 2000, reentry chips 3000. So all these players should have 2000, right? So it should be 8000 in play, 4 players. Average stack is 2000. We eliminate a player. That's going to affect the average stack, right? So it should be 8000 divided by 3. That looks right. Now let's register that same player back in, DSF, DS. You can tell I'm just slapping the keyboard when I do that. And so that's a reentry. So we see number 2 comes in. So he has a stack of 3000. So there should be 8000, 11,000 in play. 11,000 divided by 4 should be what? 2750? 2750. Okay. So that's working nicely. Payouts. Now we have, let's change the reentry cost. So 4 players, we had 4 players register at 10, a cost of 10 for the buy-in. 1 player registering at a cost of 15. 4 times 10 is 40, plus 15 is 55. So 55, 40 plus 15 is 55. And that looks good. So the feature's working in production. So is there anything else we'd have to think about? I think we're good. I think that looks good. So yeah, so we have that new feature. Maybe I have time for one other mini feature to do. Let's do one more thing that was on my list. One other thing was for a new tournament. Something minor, but one time I found myself, when I came here to a new tournament, there were no registered players. I clicked on this expecting it to register a player. I don't know why, but I did. And so it's a very small change, but my thought was to maybe make this a better empty window, let's call it. Maybe something more stylish to, as far as maybe a big button here. something kind of the empty state. Let me look at, I'm using Tailwind CSS on this project. And they have a Tailwind UI components, which sometimes has some nice examples of UI for applications. I don't know if they have, I don't know if they have a good example of an empty list. Here we go. Empty states. That's what I was looking for. So something like this, you know, it's a little cleaner, looks a little nicer when there's no entry yet. So maybe just something along these lines. No registered players, or just register a player when there's nothing there. So let's put this on HTML, get the code, and the whole thing is a button. And I think this would be better than just having a table with no entry, no registered players. It'd be nice to have just a big thing in the middle you can click on. So let's do that. So let me go back to my development branch. And this is going to be on the Players tab. In the tournament, on the Players tab, and the Players table. Let's see, loading on an unregistered player. So here's our register player button. There's a draw seats button when you have players registered. And then we get into the table itself. So here, let's say, let's only include the table. Let's see. First of all, where's the no registered players? Where is that now? No. No registered players. It's just showing up as a row in the table, which is, so let's get rid of that. And this ng templates, basically we can say we're not going to show the table at all until there's a registered player. So GitHub Copilot knew exactly what I wanted, only if there's registered players. And then underneath this templates, we'll put in our new empty component. It says create a new database right now, but but that's gonna be changed. So let's look at a new tournament. 0 registered. Any tournament with 0 registered players should be good. Oh, we're getting some errors in our. Oh yeah, this. I have some phantom tournaments. Some data is corrupted in our, because we've done some copies of some data between the production and dev servers. So sometimes there's some corrupted entries there. So let's just create a new empty tournament. Oh no, something's going on. What's going on? Cannot read properties of undefined reading length. Okay, so I just broke something. So it's our condition, our if condition. I think there's a little issue with. So if later players is not defined, then we have an issue. Okay, this should fix it. So it wasn't corrupt data, it was a bug in my code I just added. So so the players tab, players table, that looks terrible, but we'll fix that. So it's going over the boundary, but we can fix that. So, okay. And we'll have to change some of the styling and so forth. So let's look at that. Relative width full. I'm not sure why it's going over the boundaries of that. Let's see. I think it needs to be in a flex div. Let's move our button up into that. I'm just trying to correct it going off the side, which did not correct it. So let's see. Okay, so this is this area. It should be. Not seeing it highlighted. I'm not sure why, but that's what that should be. This is the div we just added. Again, why can't I see what it's highlighting? It's kind of strange. Computed. Size auto. I mean, width full should work, right? Width full. Oops. I don't understand why it's not here we get it highlighted. Why I'm not getting these highlighted, I don't know. Let's inspect this one directly. There we go. Okay. So this is going off the edge for some reason. So it's this app players table that is too big. But this one is staying within it, which is strange. So this one is fine. This one is, no, this one is fine as well. This one is not going over. It's just this one that's going over. Okay. Take the width full off of that one. Let's see what that does. Now it's probably gonna be too small. That's right. I knew that was coming. Let's put text color BV orange. Which is not working, but I'll fix that later. Yeah, it's 'cause it's got this. and it's gonna be way too small, so let's make this at least medium. We'll make this also text color BV orange. Okay, that's looking a little better. Now we just need to get this sizing correct. So let's give this background color just red, just so we can see what's happening. And we'll do the same for here. Background green. And let's put some padding here, so it's not taking up the full area. Okay, so that looks okay. Now we just need to make that, if we do width full, is that going to go off the edge of the screen again, which I don't understand if it does. And it does. It's maybe because it's being displayed as block and it should be not. Probably should be flux. No. I don't understand where it's getting its width from. Could just have it set as a set width with a big button and have that centered. But then that's too big, going to be, I have to adjust that for different sizes, so I don't like that. Could be also because I'm mixing I'm mixing two different CSS frameworks. So there's Tailwind that I'm migrating to, and I still have Covalent, which is still, oh great, that looks even worse. Just strange that this one is not going over, but this one is. That's what I don't understand. At least it wasn't, no, it's not going over. So how is this one bigger than its parent? Let's ask GitHub Copilot. Maybe they can help me. The red div, the green div with the button is overflowing horizontally the red parent div. Let's see if they can solve my problem for me. Due to the combination of width full and P12 on the button, it's saying it may be a combination of this padding I don't know about that, but the padding is added to the total width, causing the button to overflow. To fix this, you can use the box content class to include the padding in the element's total width. Okay. Box content. Okay, let's try that. No. Still overflowing. Remove relative. Actually a good thing to try. Players. Still overflowing. Our AI overlords don't know. How am I supposed to know? Still overflowing. In this code, overflow hidden hides any overflow from the parent div. It added another one. But no, I don't want to do that. Yeah, I don't think this is a weird one. This doesn't work. It also suggested putting overflow hidden here, but that's I don't want that, because if I put overflow hidden here, then it's just going to stop, and so we're not going to see the right side of this button, which is a problem. So that's no good. So let's. I don't want to take the padding off of the button. First of all, let me see if the padding is the problem. If I take that off, if I take that off, what happens? I'm still overflowing, not as much, but I'm still overflowing. I mean, it should be here. Should be within the padding 4 of that one. I mean, the padding 12 looks nice, so I don't want to get rid of that. So why is it overflowing? Doesn't make sense. Let's look at Tailwind, CSS. This project is actually on Tailwind 2. Width. What if I did like a 3/4 width or something? Oops. Copy paste. Going wrong. Let's see how that looks. I mean, that wouldn't be bad if it's centered, right? But on smaller ones, it's still going to be going off. How is that possible? So here's this one. Has a padding of 16. What is this app extra scroll? I wonder if that's messing it up somehow too. Well, that's the extra scroll I added just to the bottom, so when you're scrolling the table, you can make sure you can scroll above this this help button on the bottom. Um, let's look at flex, box size, and border box. Let's do flex. Flex row. Oh no, flex column. I think this is, it's really a conflict between the two frameworks. Something's going on with that. Allows the item to grow and shrink as needed. So let's do flex 1 in this. Let's see what happens. I don't understand what's going on here. Here the red and the green is off the edge. That's interesting. Yeah, so it's something with that. I think until I get rid of flex layout column, flex, yeah, okay. So I'm going to use the, instead of using Tailwind for this, I'm going to use the covalent one that I'm using before. So this would be flex, which was sizing it correctly, and then this will be flex equal 100, and we'll get rid of all the position styling on the classes and see if that works better. That was not what I was expecting. So that's 100%. Why is that so small now? Should I just say flex? I think we'll let it take up 100%. Oh, it's because I have the width 3/4 in there, right? Do I? Do I still have that? Yes. So here it could be a width full, and we should be okay. Thank you. Okay, so now we can get rid of these ugly green and red backgrounds. Okay. Okay, so that's, I like the icon in orange. I think the text should be in white. And it should be the same here, register a player. Same icon and same text. So let's look at the register player button. So here's the text, and here's the icon. Let's see. Get rid of that icon. We'll change the size of it probably, but just a second. And here's the text that we'll take out of there. Replace create a new database with that text. It was still a bit small. Let's make this XL. Font semi-bold is fine, I guess. See how that looks. I'm going to change the text color here and make it text white. Now is it font size, I think, for change matte icon size? I think it's font size, right? I think font size works fine. Let's see how that looks. Icon needs to be much bigger, but and maybe white is a bit aggressive. It's a. I think the border of this button is what, gray, text gray something. Border gray 300. Let's maybe make that 200. And then we'll make this one text white or text gray 200. And then we'll change here and put text 3XL. That actually looks pretty good. Register a player. The icon didn't change size, did it? Computed. Font size is 24 only. It is coming from the 3XL, right? What if we take that out? Yeah, it's going to be bigger if we take that out, right? Of course, it took it out for all of them, but let's see, class, main icon. Not sure why this is not overriding it. Let's see, angular material. But I wouldn't want to change it everywhere, only in this one. I'm not sure why this is not overriding. All right, just double check it's not overriding. Make this 5XL, but I'm pretty sure it's not. Players. It's definitely not. That's ChatGPT again. Why is see if there's an importance somewhere or something. I don't think there was. Why is text 5XL not overriding the base material icons? Font size. And it said use important. That's not great, but let's see. Let's make this big icon, custom class, and we'll add that in just for this component. It's only applied here. Font size, let's make it 40 pixels, see what that does. And important, not my favorite thing to do, but still didn't work. Now I'm confused. Computed font size, let's look at what's happening there. I guess saving the file helps, usually helps. I don't know why it didn't process my unsaved file correctly. Okay, there we go, register a player. Now should it be, should we scale it vertically as well? Just make a huge box. Let's see how that works in it's kind of duplicated. You have both buttons there. And of course it doesn't do anything yet, but and we have a hover or a selected that's blue, which I don't like. So we'll fix that as well. Indigo probably. It's their favorite color they use. Indigo, there it is. So make this BV orange instead. Custom color palette. That's better. So we'll make, do we want to hide that button? Do we want to make this bigger? Let's try making it bigger and see. Heightful. On both of them. Here we go again, going off the bottom, of course. And that's probably because that button row is pushing it down. I should probably make let's see, why is this blue not go all the way down to the bottom? That's the first question, because this is actually pretty nice if that blue's going down, so that's probably the main problem actually. Oh, interesting. On mobile, it's much different. Yeah, because I don't have the blue background on mobile. which is interesting. So that's maybe in the players table component above, the players component above. So let's go back to the desktop view. I need to pop out this pop out my console here. So the question is, let's go all the way up to this parent here. So it's the app players table there, and then this is, okay, so this is the back 700. Here we go on players tab, players param, players table. This here. So it's doing a row layout, and then this one is not taking the full height. So what if we do a height full here? It's because the whole row is not taking the whole height. I think they both stop here, or something like that. This one is... Yeah, so the whole row is not taking the full height. So let's, does this stretch? Is that possible? Doesn't look like it. Okay, so here's the player params. Okay, so this is the whole one. This is the row. This is the app players component, which is not taking the full height. So that's one problem. So what if we put a class on this, full height? Ah, at least that's done something. So it has gotten our full height row, which is good. Still have the issue on mobile, but that's okay. So on desktop, that's got that to the full height, which is what we want. So now we just have to make sure this takes into account, only takes what is left. So the question is that, I think the background one is fine because that's the blue only goes down to the bottom, it doesn't go farther. You can see that this blue is what the back 700 we just made height full. That's fine. So it's within the players table where we have the problem now. So this div is on flex. What we should maybe do is put should maybe do is make this one not flex, so it just takes the space it needs. If we make this one not flex to just take the space it needs, then this should take up the remaining space, something like that. Makes sense in my brain, but doesn't work. So height full is taking everything. So we need a div around the entire thing. That this one basically everything is inside of. This one doing a flex to take up the full size. This, we're not sure if we need that yet or not. Okay, we're not overflowing anymore, but we're back to being small, so make sure that one gets its full height. I spend more time on CSS on projects than I spend on actual actual things that are difficult. I mean, that should be more difficult. So what is happening here? So let's see. This is our let's do background green for this one. My technique when I don't know what the heck is going on with CSS is I start putting colors everywhere. That's the background, then we'll have green, and then we're gonna have that's our table, and then let's put in orange. Actually, let's do yellow. It's gonna be really ugly, but we'll at least see what's happening. So there's our green. This orangish thing is our yellow. And so we don't see any of the blue in the background because that's full. So let's do hidden for the moment so we don't see this and see what our background is doing. So there's no scroll, so it's just taking up the full height, so that's good. This is only taking up the height it needs, which is good. So let's do layouts, align. Layout column, layout align. Start stretch. It has put the button in on the left now, which is not good, but I think I wiped out text right. It used to be here, didn't I? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that looks good. So here, this doesn't have a flex on it. The table is not there yet. And then this does have a flex, so it should take up the remaining space. Let's get rid of this hidden. And for the moment, put the hidden on the button. Okay. So that's taking up what? Width full, height full. And it isn't quite taking up the whole screen. I'm not sure why it's not taking up the full height. Because the blue goes down there and I have height full, but... And now if we put our button... That actually looks pretty good. Okay, so let's get rid of these backgrounds. It could have gone down all the way to the bottom, and but it would be behind the help button, so it's actually better like this. That looks really good. Doesn't do anything yet, but it looks really good. Let's check the mobile version. Let's do a real mobile view there. Would like it to be a bit bigger. So let's go back to the players component. And yeah, so this is the tab group when it's on mobile. It's showing up this way. And what did we do down here? We made this height full. So let's do that. Let's see. Let's see this whole group and see what it's. So that's just the tabs. Tab header, the tab group is only going down that far. So what if we do put the height full here on the tab group and see if that looks better. Players, nice. That's very nice. Now, do we hide that button when it's empty and have just this big button? Because then when we add it, it's going to have, we're going to get off our empty state. So we go to register one player. We need to hide this button, of course, when that's done, but that looks okay. So let's do that. So let's hide that button. Just as we hid the table here, I'm going to do the opposite for the button, the whole button div actually. So if not turn player's length, then we show the button. So here we should not see it. Okay, let's get out of mobile and see what it looks like in regular. We're back to normal. I'm just gonna see if the extra scroll is working on the bottom, because we did change some things about the height of this area. So we want to make sure that we have the extra scroll on the bottom like was done previously. Yeah, so that looks good. Looks very good. Maybe check it on mobile. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so let's undo those registrations and go back to our empty state. And that looks pretty nice. Register a player. Let's get out of mobile. Register a player. Okay, so now we just need to hook that button up to make it do something. So the button at the top, let's see, click, open register, should be pretty easy. And now, so we do here on this button, add in the same function. And so when we go to players, we've got our register player button, click that. Opens up the register player, we click it, and the button's gone. Okay, so that's nice. That's I can't remember if this is a feature that was a little change that was asked for by one of the users, or if it was just me that tried to click on it, but I think that looks a lot nicer for the empty state. What do you think? Okay. So that's it. I've done a couple new features. We added in a couple new fields, some additional options. That was a feature requested by a user today, and we added in that little empty state. So I've got to cut off for today. I've got an appointment coming up. So thanks for everyone who stopped in and chatted and to join the stream to watch for a little while. The next, I'm not sure quite when the next development support stream will be on, but follow me on Twitch to get notifications for our next stream. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.